Well, what our researchers have been able to find and document is incredibly disturbing. We know that almost 150,000 people have been forced to flee for their lives across a dangerous river into Bangladesh. Many are coming hungry and tired, and many are reporting that they've lost their family members in attacks by the military, by security forces. They feel persecuted, and this doesn't come just from this incident, but also from the systematic discrimination that this community faces inside Myanmar for so many years.
And of course, you will have heard today that Aung San Suu Kyi has been calling all this stuff fake news.
That's right. I mean, she says we're dealing with a terrorist threat and everyone is promoting fake news and fake videos. And I have to say that, yes, there have been some pieces of misinformation, some photos circulated from other conflicts that are purported to come from the crisis. But what we've found independently through our own satellite imagery analysis is that over 20 different unique locations in the northern part of Rakhine State are aflame. And this means that the fires are so big that we can see them from space. We've spoken to people who fled. Not all of this can be dismissed as a lie or fake news.
Now tell me, what power do you think Aung San Suu Kyi has to stop this? Now you've heard her biographer there saying, you know, that she is Queen Bee, but there is quite a separation with the military and Aung San Suu Kyi, however much her father was in the military.
Well, that's true. In some ways, Burma's government now is split between the military and the civilian side. But what Aung San Suu Kyi has, and it's quite unique because she's the Nobel Peace Laureate, is the power of her voice, the power of her conviction, and the power to stand up for all people who live in her country, including this much maligned and attacked Rohingya community. And to date, she just hasn't done that.
But it's interesting because, of course, what you also heard there was she actually did the BBC's Reith Lectures, and in those lectures, she talked about basic human rights for all. Now, did she just simply, was that for public consumption, or do you really believe that she is equivocating over this, or that she genuinely believes, which does she believe, the Rohingya do not have the same human rights, or in fact that she doesn't have the power to change it?
You know, it's hard to know what's actually motivating her at this point in time. There could be some political calculations. She is, at the end of the day, an elected politician. But her words, the words, they stand for themselves. She's spoken out for human rights for all people, whether they be citizens or non-citizens. And so any of this domestic rhetoric that says these people don't belong here shouldn't matter, because they don't deserve to be killed, they don't deserve to be persecuted, and they certainly shouldn't be driven from their homes by rapes or killings by the military.
Tell me, finally, do you think there is something the Nobel Peace Committee should do? There's talk of rescinding a prize, which they say they can't do, but should there be some censure?
Well, the prize itself is irrevocable, but it does stand for some principles. And we've already seen a few Nobel laureates reach out and ask Aung San Suu Kyi to do the right thing and to stand up. Many more of these laureates can do that, because we can only hope that their voices will prevail on her to take the right decision, to cooperate with the UN, to stop obstructing the delivery of aid, and to allow independent human rights investigators in to really determine what is the truth and what's fake news.
Akshaya, Kumar, thank you very much for joining us. Well, the Labour MP, Rushanara Ali, is the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Burma. Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you think that she was massively lauded by Barack Obama, Angela Merkel? We just said she did the BBC Reith Lecture. She opened your party's new headquarters. Was that a huge miscalculation? Should there have been some critical faculty at play here?
I don't think it was a miscalculation. I think the international community rightly recognised her sacrifice and her fight for democracy in her country, and that was the right thing to do. But I think what we failed to do is recognise that the transition to democracy was not going to be a smooth one. And one of the things that I and many other parliamentarians, one of the challenges that we expressed that was going to continue was that if we remove sanctions, very rapidly, we would lose the leverage to influence the government which even with a democratic transition, it's an imperfect democracy. 25% of parliamentarians are still from the ruling military, the military-controlled defence, security, and much else. They hold the balance of power, ultimately.
But maybe we did make a miscalculation. You heard a biographer say there, you know, she was very much steeped in the military. She was part of that whole deep state idea, that perhaps she was actually pulling the wool over our eyes.
I wouldn't say that, but I think that sometimes, you know, because of her persona, because of her campaign and being under house arrest, many of us, you know, and I did, and many of us looked to her as looked to her as a symbol of hope. And you know, it's been deeply disappointing that she's not stood up for the rights of minorities, particularly the Rohingya. But there's a bigger issue in Burma. I visited Burma in 2012 after the attacks on Rohingya Muslims, where over 100,000 people were displaced, and subsequently, which is that they don't recognise the Rohingya, they don't recognise their citizenship rights.
And I remember when she came out, she consistently refused. She was never clear about the Rohingya. She always equivocated on the Rohingya, and that should have set a lot more alarm bells off.
Yes, yes, and many parliamentarians in the UK and in other countries raised those alarm bells, but unfortunately they fell on deaf ears, and they've continued to fall on deaf ears.
So what happens now? I mean, you know, your colleague has talked about, the ghost of Srebrenica, the ghost of Rwanda. Journalists can't get in, nobody can get in. Can anyone stop her?
Well, it's not just Aung San Suu Kyi, it is the military. The military is dictating what's happening, and it is actually convenient for them that much of the attention is on her. Rightly, understandably, because she is such a prominent figure. But
except the biographer says she is Queen Bee. She actually could exert more power over the military.
She should use her voice, that's true, and she hasn't, and that's deeply disappointing. But what we really need to do urgently is apply serious pressure, both through the media, the international media, as well as the international community and the United Nations, on the military, because they are prosecuting these murders. They have killed thousands and thousands of people. 500,000 people have been displaced and are in refugee camps in Chittagong in Bangladesh. Thousands of people have been displaced. And this remark about fake news is shocking. It's shocking. But the focus has got to be on holding the military rulers to account, because they are still calling the shots.
However, who are the ones to put pressure on Burma? I wonder if there's a possibility that all the people that supported her, stood up, Merkel, Obama, should actually be almost shaming her into actually standing up to the military.
Yes, what I would say is that she needs to stand up to the military, but the international community, Western leaders need to stand up to the Burmese military. The United Kingdom, I mean, 70 parliamentarians. I coordinated a letter to Boris Johnson last year after the last episode of violence that resulted in thousands of people being killed and displaced. We got a response from a junior minister of the Foreign Secretary. This time, he took a good few days before he made a statement, which was pretty tame, frankly. And we are still providing military training to the military, spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, and those issues need to be reviewed, because and it's questionable whether that kind of effort is actually going to work, because it's not so far. The military is doing nothing but causing greater harm and prosecuting murder.
But do you think that now and forevermore Aung San Suu Kyi's reputation is tainted?
Yes, absolutely. But the country's reputation overall is tainted, because people have been hopeful about a better future for the country. And we've got to exert greater pressure on both her and the military.
Rushanara Ali, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.